All right, and welcome back. Wow, hard to believe we are at day 15 or way number 15 that you can get started in real estate investing. If you've been following on from the beginning, thank you again. And if you haven't, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you do not miss a single episode. Like I said, this is day 15. We still have 15 other ways to go for the rest of the month of April, which is Financial Literacy Month. Now, if you've been following from the beginning, we've talked about REITs, real estate investment trust, private and public, real estate syndications, turnkey properties, agricultural parcels, just to name a few. So figure for day 15 or right kind of smack in the middle, and I think everyone's probably at least heard about this, is fix and flip. Everybody's familiar with this. Everyone's seen HGTV. Oh, I bought this really crappy house for $100,000. I threw $50,000 in it. I sold it for $200,000 and pocketed $50,000. Easy peasy. Everyone can do it, right? Well, HGTV makes it to look a little bit easier than it really is. I'm just going to kind of walk through a few talking points for some people that, again, I myself have not done a fix and flip yet. But very, very likely probably in the future could see myself doing it if the right project came along. One of my friends and a local business owner, as well as an investor here in town, he's done numerous fix and flip projects within a 30-mile radius. And I know basically a friend's coworker that's had a really unique way of doing this. He actually continually takes out a $50,000 loan from his workplace IRA, which with 401k, you're allowed to take up to $50,000 or 50% of your available cash balance, whichever comes first. So if you have $100,000 in your 401k through work, and the 401k allows you to take a loan out, if you have $100,000 in cash, you can take out $50,000. If you only have $50,000 in cash, you can only take out $25,000. If you're a Peter Thiel and have $5 billion in your retirement account, which might raise a question of why are you still working, but just stay with me. If you have $5 billion in your traditional 401k, you can still only take a max of $50,000 loan. So it's $50,000 or 50% of your balance, whichever comes first. So now, like I said, one of my friend's coworkers, he's been doing this for years. He takes out a loan from his 401k. He purchases a property and he fixes it up. Sometimes he's sold it. Sometimes he's put a tenant in it and collects the rent payments. Then he'll do a cash out refinance. We talked about this earlier with the Burr method and cash out refinance to use up lazy equity, maybe in your existing property, your primary home or investment properties. Does a cash out refinance, pays back the 401k loan, and just rinses and repeats. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind. I'm just going to call this investor John as well. He actually has a contracting background. He's not a contractor now, has a full-time job, but he has a contracting background. He, very handy, knows how to build stuff. So a lot of the work from the fix and flips he does on his own. Sometimes maybe a little bit slower than if you hired a contractor. But typically with any project, if you were to say, I'm going to fix and flip this house, start from scratch, you're going to want to have the worst house, maybe a sagging roof, bunch of brush, broken windows, really, really high grass, hasn't been tended to in a long time. You're going to want the worst house in the best neighborhood. Unfortunately, so many people make this mistake right out the get-go. They just find a bad house in a horrible neighborhood, or maybe the best house in the worst neighborhood. You can do a lot to the property. There's very, very little you can do about the neighborhood. Unless you know of something coming along the line of a new development project or some revitalization project with some tax credits through the city and county. So right off the bat, you're going to want to find the worst house in the best neighborhood. And typically you're going to really want to try to find this as an off-market property. Once it hits the MLS or the general population knows about it, As a seller, that's great because you are going to get probably top dollar. You're going to get multiple offers. If you're a buyer, you don't want any competition. You don't want any offers. You want to be going and bidding on the Mona Lisa at an empty auction house where the auctioneer just looks around and names a price. You're the only one there to raise your hand, and that price gets lowered and lowered. And you're like, all right, I'll buy the Mona Lisa for $1,000. Extreme example, I know, but I'm just telling you, as a buyer, you're going to want the worst house in the best neighborhood, and you're going to want as little competition as possible. Typically, the more distressed, the better of a discount you're going to get. And again, I've seen a lot of people make this mistake. I got some friends up in Fargo where they've even admitted they ran their numbers wrong, where they overpaid for the property right off the get-go. So you're going to really want to know your numbers for, what are comparable sales selling for? What are comparable homes? Have they been on the market for a long time? What did they sell for? What's the range? Be conservative. If the property is, maybe some comparables are 200,000, be conservative, 180,000. Maybe you think you can make the numbers work by saying I can offer $50,000 to the buyer. Maybe it's in foreclosure, it's a short sale, tax auction sale, whatever the case may be. A lot of times emotions get involved and you say, I really want that house. I really want to make it go for it. Have your bar set, whatever it is, be conservative on the numbers and say, I'm going to pay up, I'm going to bid up to whatever it is, $30,000. I am not going over this line, period. End of discussion. That's another mistake that a lot of people do. They just, get a little bit too emotional in it. They see a lot of potential in the property. Fine, I'll pay 35, I'll pay 40,000, I'll pay 50,000, whatever the case may be. Every dollar that this goes up that you are paying for the property is one more dollar that you need to get back out, one less dollar you're going to get in profit, and one less dollar that you can put into rehab. And that's probably the next thing. Again, HGTV makes this look so easy. Just buy a property. Yeah, they might knock out a wall and, oh crap, there's a dead mouse there. Oh, there's some black mold we forgot about. Okay, it's going to cost an extra $2,000. And that's the biggest hiccup they got to worry about. It doesn't quite work that way. For the rehab budget, you really, really, really want to dial in your numbers, probably be conservative, and just plan that something's not going to go expected. Maybe you've had a chance to walk through the property. Maybe you've talked to some neighbors. You've looked at some pictures. Maybe you had a realtor take a video of it, and you've just done a general walkthrough and okay, I can get flooring installed, flooring and installation, whatever, $2 a square foot. And there's this many square foot I'll need. And this will need to be pulled out, and I'm going to rent a dumpster. And this is going to be a paint job. I'm going to need new appliances, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm coming up with $40,000 for a rehab project. You might want to just maybe just bump that up to $50,000. Again, just be conservative, run your numbers, expect something is going to happen, and expect the unexpected. Now, one little rule of thumb that I was told many years ago, and I'm sure the numbers are up a little bit more. So maybe as a general rule of thumb for rehab budget, this used to be kind of a take a step back. I think it was a 5, 10, 20. Might want to look at it as a 10, 20, 30, just to be on the safe side. Now, what does 10, 20, 30 mean? Well, let's say you come across the house, structure's good, there's no foundation issues, the roof is in good shape, doesn't need to be replaced. Overall good bones. It just needs more of a cosmetic, more of an facelift, if you will. Maybe some new appliances and some updating. So we'll call this LR for a light rehab. And again, numbers used to be about $5 a square foot. This is 5, 6, 7 years ago. Things just with inflation and the cost of, everything going up now, I think $10 is probably a good ballpark line. So what does that mean? For $10 a square foot. So if it's just kind of running out round numbers here, if it's $10 a square foot for a light rehab, just kind of a, new paint, new flooring, new appliances, etc. 2,000 square foot house, looking at probably about a $20,000 renovation budget or a rehab budget. If it's a medium rehab, I want to look at $20 a square foot. And if it is a disaster property, like I'm talking condemned, I'm talking basement foundation wall caving in, water damage, leaky roof needs to be replaced, HVAC. Typically, the four most expensive things in order are the foundation, the roof, the electrical, and well, actually five things now. I'm doing that out loud. The foundation, the roof, electrical, plumbing, HVAC. Sometimes people, put a couple of those together, but typically in order, your foundation can get very expensive to fix, especially if a caving in a wall, if you need to put in a new support, brackets, I'm not a civil engineer by any stretch of the mind. I just know that can be extremely expensive. So if it is a large rehab, we'll just say severe rehab, very distressed property, might be looking at $30 a square foot. So again, back to the 2,000 square foot example, might be looking at least $60,000 for a conservative rehab budget. And like I said, severe rehab, maybe the roof is past its useful life, it's leaking. There's a large bow in the basement wall. Electrical, maybe it's got those old knob and tube wirings from was it way back in the 40s with World War II. Little side note, a lot of insurance companies will not insure a property if it has old wiring, especially knob and tube, old breakers versus actually old fuses versus breakers. That's another thing to look out for, potential fire hazard. Again, a lot of insurance companies kind of frown on those. They like to see updated electrical. Plumbing also can be a issue, especially if there's, history of maybe it was a do-it-yourselfer, they did the plumbing wrong, or maybe the plumbing's outdated, isn't properly vented, doesn't have the proper widths of the plumbing, maybe there's too many a toilet, a wash, and a sink are all going through one pipe, which typically building codes is going to say you need to have X number of pipes available in the house and certain width, discharges, et cetera, et cetera. And then of course the HVAC, AC, which can be, on the list of things tends to be the least expensive, but if anyone's changed out a furnace, changed out an air conditioner, maybe even need to put in new heating runs because maybe the upstairs never got heat. Maybe there was just a small plug-in heater they used and you need to put in a new run, and maybe not only have to update the furnace, but with heating the whole house, putting in new runs so the upstairs gets properly heated. Maybe you need to upgrade to a bigger furnace, which is going to be more costly to purchase and more costly to run, obviously. As a realtor, I can attest, just back in, what was it, November of last year, sold the house to a couple, and on the disclosures, the upstairs basically didn't have a heating source. There was no runs to it from the furnace. There was no electric baseboards. They just, I don't know, just kind of lived with it and kept the doors cracked open. They had a couple space heaters, and that was how they made it work. So, again, HVAC systems can be a little expensive. So at the rehab, you're gonna, again, just kind of a review, you're gonna want to pick the worst house in the best neighborhood. There's a lot you can do to the property, very, very little you can do with the overall neighborhood. Just drive around it. How are the other houses looked? If this is, kind of a rundown area, class C, class D property, neighborhood, maybe, talk to the local police department, see where they get a lot of calls from. There's a website you can actually go to spotcrime.com. I'll actually give you a summary report of any crimes within a certain radius of a property you're looking at or a neighborhood you're looking at. And, if it's something as simple as, a car was broken into versus, a murder or outstanding arrest warrant was issued or whatever the case may be. So lots you can do if you pick the worst house in the best neighborhood. Lots you can do with the property, very little you can do with the overall neighborhood. Again, run your numbers, be conservative. What kind of rehab are you looking? You know, quick numbers, 10, 20, $30 a square foot might be a good, benchmark. But if you're coming up with maybe it's going to cost $40,000 to rehab that property, maybe run the numbers to $50,000 rehab. And probably the biggest thing I've seen a lot of people do with rehabs, um, obviously, if you can do the work yourself, that's going to save a lot of labor costs. But if it is something specialty, like, especially, your wiring or maybe, tile and grout or something, more exquisite, I might want to hire a professional for that. But make sure that you don't let your budget get out of control. You want to make this as a rehab for an investment property, for a property for resale. You yourself probably are not going to live in this. So don't go overboard. Don't say, oh, well, gosh, I really want stainless steel appliances. I really want granite countertops. I really want that new tile floor that I saw over at Lowe's. I want to get that jacuzzi tub and put that in there. I want the high efficiency washer and dryer. I mean, you can go on and on and on and really get your budget out of whack. You just need to make sure it's safe, affordable, functional, or functioning, and clean. Pretty much the four tenets of any tenant that wants to move into a property. Do they feel safe there? Is everything up to code? Is it functional? Is it clean? Is it up to date? Beyond that, well, we had some laminate flooring versus vinyl plank or tile. Not a big deal. We just had some lower end appliances versus stainless steel. You know what? Still functional. Roof, instead of a steel roof having to worry about ice dams and everything, we just put on plain Jane asphalt shingles. Maybe instead of a triple pane Energy Star 5-star rated window, we just put in kind of generic Renew by Anderson windows. Save some dollars there. So make sure you keep your rehab budget in check and make sure you don't go overboard. Obviously, structural issues, big issues that need to be taken care of and fixed before the building inspector comes by. Definitely want to make sure you take care of those. But, if you bought right, you bought the worst house in the best neighborhood, you kept your rehab budget in check. And maybe when it comes to sell, or maybe you want to tenant or rent this out, certainly have that option. We're just going to go off of fix and flip, where we're going to be reselling. If the comps are, in the $200,000 range, put on the market for 180, 190. Housing market's kind of cooling off a little bit. Interest rates are going higher. Don't shoot for the moon and say, well, I can pay $10,000 more. I really want to get this property. No, that's back to where we had that bar of this is how much I'm going to buy the property for, and not a penny more. If it goes above that, it sells above that, it gets bid up past that, say in an auction, I am not going over that line. Make sure you have that set in place. If you go over here and you rehab budget, you say, yeah, let's, whatever, I didn't plan on that. Oh, let's just, get a little nicer fixtures or whatever the case may be. Yeah, I think I can still get $200,000 out of the house. Again, be conservative. What if you only get $180,000 out of it? You went over budget for what you initially acquired for it. You went over budget on the rehab. You didn't run your numbers and it went out of control. And you did not go on the conservative end. You only got 180,000 out of it versus 200. A couple of these things, or maybe all these things get out of control. Maybe at the end of the day, you take out a short, end up getting a short loss, or maybe just break even, which by that point, then like, why in the world did I put all that money, time, and effort into it to essentially make $0? Got some friends up north. They ran into this a couple of times with the fix and flipper. And, if you're doing several, maybe you make a profit on this one, you lose money on this one, you break even on this. Yeah, it all kind of evens out. But again, it really comes down to the numbers. If you want to do a fix and flip project, yeah, you can get some tips from HGTV, but it isn't an end all be all. You want to know your numbers, know what your budget limit is to acquire the property. You want the worst house in the best neighborhood. Property you can do a lot with, neighborhood, not so much. Have your baseline set. If you're not going to go over that, run your rehab numbers, maybe even add in some cushion, and be conservative on your exit plan. If the Market says that after repair value, ARV is another term that gets thrown out a lot. ARV says that home could resell for $200,000. Run the numbers at 180. So it gives you a little bit more cushion on both the entry, the rehab, and the exit. If you have a cushion built in for all three of those areas and something goes wrong, it gives you a lot more flexibility than trying to overpay for it, go overboard on the rehab, and try for pie in the sky for what you're going to end up selling it for. So with that, that concludes day 15 or way number 15 of how you can get started in real estate. Figure this would be a good one, fix and flip. I think a lot of people are at least familiar with the concept, but just wanted to give a few pointers I've seen and heard and read about from other people that have done this. Hope you learned something from this, and stay tuned for video number 16 as we finish out for April Financial Literacy Month, the total of 30 ways you can get started in real estate investing.